So again, thanks for being here this evening. And now we'll go to the after show. Unfortunately, Mr. Cooney is away today, and he'll also be away next week. He's on a vacation. I'm not sure where he went, but he's on a vacation. So does anybody have anything that they would like to talk about on the after show? Please speak up.
Well, I have a comment, Jim.
Yes, sir.
About the Nighthawks cafe building.
Yes,
I think
sir.
you should give credit to Edward Hopper, the painter who painted the picture that inspired that model.
I totally agree. I've got a copy of that picture, and I'm posting that picture in the article that I'm writing about the Nighthawk Cafe. It's an excellent portrait, and it's something that obvious when you see it, you want it on your model railroad. I mean, this is really something to see. And watching Jim Murphy build this on the show, Jim is planning to do a complete interior, lighting and everything for this. So this really ought to be something special. And to be able to have a real piece of model railroading history, I think is important. And I really think that the owners of Wit and Wisdom are to be congratulated for bringing this kind of a kit to the market. I hope they do others.
Yeah, it's a terrific kit. You may recall in one of my introductory pieces on this program, I built that kit in O scale, and it is an amazing product. I do hope they produce other kits. If you're interested in the origin of the original model, the John Armstrong model, there's an article in a 1989 issue of Model Railroader where he explains how he scaled from the painting to create a three-dimensional model, which kind of fits in with the stuff that you're doing right now in your scratch building program on how to go from a photograph to a model. And Armstrong had an engineering background, and so he figured out how to look at that building in the painting, which is at an angle, and turn it into a square and three-dimensional structure. It's a fun article, and I'm sure you can find it in the Model Railroader Index.
And you know, frankly, when you were on the show and showed that model, that's why I called Wit and Wisdom. And I said, listen, I saw this. It's unbelievable to me. It's John Armstrong's model. My gosh, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. We talked. I said, how about doing a build along? I said, I don't care what scale you build it in. It doesn't have to be O scale. So we're building it in HO scale. But they're offering the kit in N, HO, S, and O scale to the modelers. And they've got a nice discount on it in all of those scales. So I really hope a lot of people are interested in it, because when I saw the model that you built and how it looked, I thought everybody is going to want one of those. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful model in my opinion.
And they're very clever that though they did the whole 4-building section, they also offer just the diner. So if you don't have room for the whole assemblage, you can add just the diner, which is the keystone of the whole thing, and it comes with the 3D printed interior. And if you're like me, you add even more details to the interior. There's a pie case in there, and I spent a whole evening fabricating O-scale slices of pie to put in the pie case. And then when I was finished, I realized you couldn't see it.
Now, one thing I need to caution everybody about, the discount and everything is for in-stock models, in-stock inventory. And they have more in-stock inventory in the scales in the complete kit than they do the diner by itself. So if you want the diner by itself, my advice is you need to order it now. Because once that in-stock inventory is gone, then that's it. That's the end of that run. And they're going to require a significant number of pre-orders to run this again. So the run of this kit, I think, now is, if you want one, now is an opportunity to get the kit. And the discount applies both to the diner as well as the complete set of the kit. The one that's going to be built on the show is the complete buildings and everything. So Jim is going to have the whole kit to be able to build, the diner being a portion of that.
I got something, Jim.
Yes, sir.
While you earlier you had the little video about doing the telephone booth.
Yes,
And
sir.
This is one I built way back by L Scratch, and it's actually 1/24th, and that kind of reminded me of, that video kind of reminded me of this, what I built, probably 25 years ago, and for 1/24th. And it's got, phone booth, it's got the phone in it, and the phone book hanging and everything, and kind of the thing of the past nowadays, the phone booths. But that made me think of it when you were showing that, they were showing that video of building it.
Yeah, you sure do see nobody understands what that phone is hanging, or the phone book hanging in the booth. Like, where did that go away?
Right, yeah.
That's what I put in the comments. What's that book like thing hanging down?
Yeah,
Right, yeah. So,
and it sure dates yourself in a hurry.
Yeah,
60
but those are the kind of models that make a scene, though,
60 years old tomorrow. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
happy birthday and many more.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I was just visiting the Wit and Wisdom website. As far as the straight up diner goes, it looks like he's only got a few O scale ones and a few N scale ones left. I didn't check the complete building because I don't really have space for the whole thing.
Yep.
So if you want just the diner, apparently in HO or S, you're out. So
That's my understanding. They went fast.
yeah, I don't know how many. Like, I didn't look at the whole kit. He might have some of those left.
He does. He does.
Well, I mean, in those scales, I don't know. I'm sure he's got
Yeah,
some.
He does. He has it. He has the whole kit in all the scales.
Okay.
That's why I mentioned it, because of some of the scales, he's got more of them than others. So if you want one of these, like I say, now is the time.
What kind of discount is he offering?
10%.
Just think about India when you're looking at the price.
Yep. Isn't that something? I mean, when I talk to model railroaders over there, they tell me, this is why the hobby is as small as it is here. And except for this one company that I found over there, I haven't found any other companies anywhere in the world that manufacture Indian model railroads for the Indian railroad system. And except for this one company, and it started by two guys, and I think that they're moving right along and doing very well with it right now.
Yes. Kind of quiet out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Anybody else got anything they'd like to talk about? What do you think
Well-
about the idea about the division and local clubs? How does that strike everybody?
There's a lot of them, Jim.
I understand. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's a good idea to get some exposure of what's going on at local areas around the country. I'm in a process right now of writing an email to Phil about what goes on in this area around Seattle and Puget Sound.
Well, I appreciate it. And, we've got some other people that are on the show off and on that are superintendents of divisions. And you learn a lot about the different modelers and what their interest is, and whether they'll help other people or not, or are they there just for the friendship part of it, or they want to come and drink a cup of coffee and say hello, or are they really there for the modeling and the learning experience and that kind of thing.
All of the above.
And there's, in a division, normally you'll get a slice of that. My experience in club members basically seem to be one or the other type. And predominantly a club will either be a social club or a modeling club. But at least my experience in clubs, they're not, there's not an even split, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And I think both clubs and divisions have a tendency to be cyclical over time with different things depending on the membership. And and in a club, a lot of times you go through a different membership when you're building the layout than when you get to the point where it's kind of built and it's operating and it made more shows. And so I think the interest levels of the members of the club may change over time. And so it's kind of interesting. How do you manage that in a club where, it's essentially complete? How do you provide modeling opportunities for members? If there's a lot of very reasonably quality existing modeling on the layout.
Or Phil, you can also look at an example that's, in our case, the exact opposite of that. We had a very active club with around 30 to 35 members, most that would show up every Tuesday night, with a large layout in the basement of a church that we held public openings for often. And when the church was sold, we had to move out, and we've been struggling. We have not found another place. So we've maintained the social aspect of the club while we're looking for another location, but our membership dropped by 2/3 during that.
Yep. And if you find a location, then you'll get members that'll come back, right?
Absolutely.
That want to build, and so, I think that's kind of one of the challenges with clubs is the facilities. And what you find is clubs that have their own facilities or can figure it out seem to be in a much better position than those that operate, that, kind of live at the whim of some other group.
Yeah.
So.
And I think what you'll hear too, depending on who shows up here, I think you're going to hear a wide range of different kinds of programs and activities and really the philosophy of the people. I think Phil will agree with me. Really, the success, my experience has been the success of a region or a club is the leadership. If the superintendent of a division is not really pushing it and providing leadership for that division, then that division is not going to be successful. It boils down to the leadership in these organizations that make them or break them. At least that's been my experience. And I think, having the people on, you may hear some people that you say, geez, I don't want anything to do with them. Well, that's probably a division superintendent. That his members may feel the same way about him, or they look at him and they say what a great guy he is to his face, and then behind his back they say, I don't know why we even come to these meetings. And yeah, there's that kind of division out there. I guarantee you there is. But most of the divisions that I've associated with or been involved with, they really have excellent people that step up and want to really provide a service to the hobby and to the modelers that are there. And it's amazing, some of the numbers that'll turn out for a meeting. I mean, you'll see people that, except for that one time a quarter or whenever they have their meetings, you'll never see them because they may live 100 miles from you. And all of a sudden, you'll get these people coming together in one place and be able to benefit from their experience in modeling. And that's been my experience in some of the divisions around the country.
I was in a club in the Washington DC area, and they had a monthly, one of the Tuesday nights was their business meeting every month. That was the best attended meeting every month. All those bureaucrats, they love meetings. That's what they love to do.
Well, one of the clubs I was a member of was, that you've heard me talk about it, the Detroit United Railway Trolley Club. And one of the things that you had to do to get the people to come to your home is you had to have chocolate cake or a sweet of some kind, but preferably a chocolate cake. And I'm not talking about your little small chocolate cake. I'm talking about a tray from the bakery of a chocolate cake that would serve 30, 40 people. And so you had to have something like that to feed the people. Plus you had to have M&Ms, nuts, different kinds of pop, iced tea, and that was it. I mean, it was kind of like, you set up a buffet.
As a social club.
Well, it was, but we all built trolley layouts. That's what brought us together in the first place. We were modelers, and we built stuff. And we used to bring the models that we were building and working on, we used to bring them to the meets and show people and run them on each other's layouts and so forth. But come time for eat, then all of the models were put away. And you went in and you sat down and you went through the buffet line. And you probably gained 15 pounds by the time you left one of the club meetings.
Yep. This is Larry here. Yeah, I'm in Toronto, and I moved to Toronto in 1969, married in 72. My wife didn't like me road racing. She didn't like me collecting guns. So I was only left with sailing. So then I found a railway club. I just happened to go out in an open house. The Delaware and Rutland Model Railway Club was HO. They owned their own building. And I was very impressed with it. It was huge. So I joined it. And within a couple of years, I'm on the board of directors, but 3 of the men was on that board were older than I was, and they were war vets. When they came back, they were starting families, they were buying a house, they were starting, children, all the things you get caught up in that. But 3 of 4, a couple more, they went and got a mortgage and bought an industrial building. And I thought we're indebted. So we, during my tenancy on the board of directors, we retired that loan, and we went on from there. So, and they were the mentors for me. It was broken into departments. We met twice a week, 2 nights a week, and we'd have 2 nights of work, I believe it was, and then 2 nights of operation. It was a great operating club. That's why I learned about operation. We had a CTC board, first one I'd ever seen. And 2 of the gentlemen, they worked for Bell Canada and then Northern Telecom. So they got all the equipment. There was all these huge boards of these little glass blocked relays clicking away because they operated all the main switches all over the whole layout. And it was just amazing. And I used to belong to the NMRA, and I enjoyed going to the local conventions twice a year, one in the fall, one in the spring. Was great. Contest room. I really always enjoyed the contest room, and then going to clinics. And but politics. It's too bad it's just so much politics, but you do need a hierarchy to run in such a large organization. We were in Canada, so we were kind of like the poor cousins up here on this side of the border, the way it felt. But I still, whenever you talk about mentoring, I always go back to think of those men, the older men in that club, and they were sort of head of the different departments: scenery, electric, track, or maintenance. We had some that would sit there and just work on engines, and one fellow was very skilled. He built four brass engines, just looking at the plans in MR Craftsman, those plans. You used to see double page plans, and he would work from that and built an engine just from those. Amazing.
When I was coming up in the hobby and everything, it used to remind me of it was almost like getting a union card. If you belong to a club or you belong to the NMRA and you went to the divisions or whatever, it was almost like you had your union card. And the same way the unions used to have apprentice programs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of situation that I was able to experience when I was trying to learn how to build models and, wanted to learn more. And I found that the more questions I asked and the more people I asked to help me, the more help I got. And now I hear from modelers that say, I'm not so sure I feel comfortable asking people for questions, asking questions because maybe they'll think I'm stupid or, whatever. And my reaction is you got to ask the questions. To me, the greatest honor you can bestow on somebody is to ask for their help, because you're giving them the honor of recognizing that they're superior to you in that knowledge. And what you're trying to do is say, teach me, help me here. And I think that's one of the greatest honors you can bestow on somebody is to ask for their help. So just go and ask is my best advice.
That's true. And if you copy somebody's model, you say, well, you copied my model, but that is an honor. You recognize them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other part of it is you've heard me talk about the thrill of being able to stand back and look at something that you've built and say, I built that. I'm telling you, there's a lot of pride in that. And, trying to get people to understand and that have never experienced that, what it's like is hard. But I mean, it's a thrill. At least it was to me.
We're lucky here in Toronto for railway clubs. There's a no-gauge railway club that's been around since the 40s. And they are now in the third location. They're closer to my home in the east end of Toronto, but they are renting, but it's a very large club. And not big membership. I don't know what, they may be up like 25 members. When the DNR, the club I belong to, we always bounced between 15 to 20 members. And it was dues, of course. And it was structured, and it was actually a company. We had a board of directors, and we always had to have a shareholders meeting once a year and show the financials and all that type of thing. And it was very structured, and that way we could maintain that mortgage. And it was quite a large building, so it was split in half, and there was another company next door. So we rented that out to them for years, a company there, and that helped pay the mortgage right there. The dues, that was just for things we wanted to do on the club for buying whatever we needed.
You're fortunate to have had the financial backing to help you maintain the club in a building. And a lot of us don't have that, and it's hard to get a group to pay the amount of money and fees in order to maintain a building like that. So that's why we go from home to home.
Yeah,
it's a little different with the divisions. They include all of these clubs in the area, plus anyone who joins the NMRA and the NFR. Our division in WOD, the Western Ontario Division in Southwestern Ontario, is pushing the same thing that Jim is doing right now, trying to help people learn some of the things that they need to know to get better in their hobby. Our district superintendent, he's quite knowledgeable on how to run something. You need somebody who knows how to do that, which Jim does himself and his helpers. It means a lot. Otherwise, you don't get anywhere. You can't even get off the ground if you don't have somebody with that type of knowledge to help you along.
Well, you're exactly right. I give you a perfect example. When we moved to Florida, I moved in an area with a division that had not had a meeting for 25 years. And because nobody else wanted it, I was elected superintendent of the division. Well, 2 years later, we had quarterly meetings all over the division, never in the same place. We had $2,000 in our treasury. and the membership was growing. Now, I was told when I took over as superintendent, the region has enough meetings. We don't need any more meetings, so we don't want you to have meetings. And I said, okay. And then I was told, well, if you have meetings, you can only have them in one place because that's where most of us live and we're not going to travel. I said, okay. Well, it took 2 years. We had meetings all over the division, one of the largest divisions in Florida. Had meetings all over the division. And we had $2,000 in our bank account. And we charged $10 to come to a meeting. You got lunch, got all day. We had clinics. We had a what I'm calling on the show build-alongs. What we had was a modeler, and I called up a manufacturer to donate the kits, and we had free kits, and the modeler built the kit, and anybody that would come and contribute a little bit of money for the division could get a kit and build along with that modeler. That was the concept of the build-alongs that I tried to do on this show. It's all possible. You just got to have somebody that wants to do it. And it's the key to the division is the success of the leadership. If you've got the leadership, and Phil, I think you will agree with me on this 100%, the leadership will develop that division. When he leaves, if the person that comes in doesn't do anything, then it'll be right back the way it was before all of the things that have happened in the past. It is the person that's in that leadership role in a division or a club, whether board of directors, whoever it is, they're going to make that club or division.
All right.
Oh, I gotta go. Good night, guys.
Hey, Jamie.
Take care.
Jamie, thanks so much.
Good night.
We're kind of one of the fortunate ones with our club that up in Elkhart, Indiana, we've owned the building since 1950. And it's not a huge building, but it's all paid for. And we got about 27 members now. And we do an annual train show. And that, that gives us enough money to keep the place going and keep it maintained. And but a lot of, like a lot of you guys are saying, a lot of places are not fortunate to have their own building. And I've seen some clubs, around that come and go because they don't have a building. And all of a sudden, wherever they're at changes and they're out the building. So then that disbands the, club, unfortunately. But so.
Well, you're fortunate to have the club. You really are. And frankly, that's what this is all about, to hear about those kind of successes. Because some areas that have modelers that don't have clubs, don't have divisions, don't have meetings, don't have any kind of get together, maybe somebody will hear something and say, well, I might be able to do that. Why don't I call some of my buddies and let's see if we couldn't do something like that here.
Right. Well, and our years back, way before I was a member, I mean, I heard stories that there was just a couple people and in the club, in that building, and one member pretty much maintained it because that was his life, and he kept the club going for a couple of years just on some of his own money as well because there wasn't members to help support it. So that's dedication as well too.
You're darn right. And the club ought to be appreciative to him for doing it.
Oh, we are. We're indebted to him big time, and we always bring him up usually in a meeting. His saying was, "We've got money in the bank, but we're broke."
Yeah.
And but all the bills were paid, and that's the so we've been fortunate the last 15 years of doing train shows and growing and everything, and we do an annual one every year, and that's created a lot of extra money for us to be able to upgrade the building and keep it up to date, and a lot of things we didn't have beforehand. But,
Well, you may get a kick out of this. When I was trying to get this division kicked off, my philosophy it was use other people's money. So when I so to have the first so instead of me having to kick out of my own pocket to rent a space to try to find where we could have a meeting, I went to the local train club that was holding a train meet show kind of thing, to sell, have tables and that kind of stuff and have a regular train show. And I went to them and I said, listen, I'll get the division to support your train show and try to get as many people as I can out to your train show. But what I need a room for a couple of hours during your train show where I can have a division meeting. And by gosh, the guy said, okay, I'll do that for you. And that was the meeting. That was our first division meeting after 25 years in that train show.
well, our division up here, Michiana Division, NMRA, they're using libraries for the meets. And that works out. They haven't been since COVID, but, and they kind of do move all over the area that the division is in for meetings like you were talking, Jim, that don't hold it in one spot, so you get more people to come that way. And hopefully someday we'll get back to doing that, but right now we've been doing Zoom meetings and because the libraries are real reluctant to even let people in groups, but our division here uses the library. They ask for a room, and as long as it's open to the public, they let you use a room, and there's no charge there. So, no expense other than you getting there, But, so that's an idea too for divisions that want to do, meetings, is check out the local libraries.
Absolutely.
I think up here now, we'd have to pay for libraries because like everything else, everybody's looking for money and funds, especially all the city's growing. But there's a historical group up here, a railway historical group. They've been around for years, the 50s or 40s. And they meet at City Hall. And we have another hall called Metro Hall. And but they have to pay for those committee rooms, but they're not, I guess it's not that big a charge. And that's another way of getting around it.
Probably the only stipulation of our libraries here is they have to be open to the public, so if somebody coming in the library wanted to come into that meeting, they'd be welcome to come in and sit down, but which is no big deal because you're not going to get, you might get one person that come in and do that, but
Well, that's this COVID has just turned everything upside down. We had a lot of train shows. In fact, some weekends in the falls and the spring, there'd be shows that to be two shows, you'd have to, decide which one you're going to go to. And they would hold them in schools, a lot of schools, and they'd always been, going back to the same school for 20 years. That's all gone because the schools do not want to have groups in the school, especially on a weekend. And then the janitor would have to come in and they have to sanitize and have it ready for the children coming in on Monday. So
Right.
all those different places, the same here with cadets. And we have a military organization that used to fund the cadets to a degree and give them a space in their meeting halls. And that's gone, by the way, for now anyway. So in-person meetings, it's just not happening.
Well, COVID has made us go that way, and it's actually showed us a whole new avenue, like we're doing right now.
Yes.
I mean, we couldn't do this if we went to some place, because I wouldn't bother going 120 miles to see Jim. If Jim's on Zoom, then I can talk to him personally. That's made a whole difference in the way this hobby is going to go. We can't learn something from somebody that's 100 miles away, and if we only see him at meetings once a month or less. This way, we can actually see them here, talk to them personally, and say, look, I got a question. Can you answer that question for me?
Yep.
It's a great way to learn.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm doing these. What you just said is the reason that I started these.
Exactly.
Well, within the group I'm in now, it's been around Robin. I've been with them about 35 years. We're old gauge, well, for the most part, old gauge, narrow gauge. It's a narrow gauge group, but there's a couple of old standard gauge guys come on board, and I'm really happy to have them too. And so it's, there's about 22 of us now. So it's really hard to get, our houses are getting right to the limit. But what Jim said about the food, I used, within that was 22, we'd meet once a month and round robin. And those that had layouts, always was those that had layouts. And so we'd take some of the ones that didn't have layouts and they'd be co-hosts. So they would supply the refreshments in the afternoon, the drinks, pop the beer and chips and everything. And then when generally we go out to supper after the afternoon and go to a restaurant together. But I hosted, because just the geographical locality, we had about 5 or 6 members here in Toronto. Some have passed now. And so we used to always get together on a Wednesday night and we would go to somebody's house and work on their layout. And they were just getting back to my place because we worked on one fellow's layout for 10 years consecutively. And, but, we have to have at the end of the night after around 10:30, we'd come upstairs in the dining room and I'd have the coffee and a tea on. Somebody wanted tea and there's always, cake. Somebody brought the sweets. And then, sometimes you kick in cheese and other things, crackers and whatever. Yeah, that was always had to end with a little feast.
Did ever get the layout done?
No, mine's not done yet. Of course, I keep taking parts out of it and keep changing it. And Jim was asking me to send some pictures. I just sent some pictures, of a build, that's the thing that's going on. But right now, there's stuff laying on top of my layout. Because I'm rebuilding the other end of the basement. If we had shut down early, I was going to go down and paint another 2 walls, but that's the way it goes. I procrastinate. When you say build along, well, God, you'd have to be around for 2 years to build along with me.
Well, they say the layouts are never done, but
I'm like that. I'm like,
find some.
it's all about concept and visualizing and then building the thing. And now somebody on the week, I was on the weekend show, Saturday show, and somebody said they didn't like mock-ups. Well, I use mock-ups and they're fantastic for, you set them and you look at site. I'm always looking at sight lines and things like that. And I don't believe in building little tiny buildings that look like frontier town for where children might go, on a Saturday. Buildings are large. You think you go into a small town, USA or here in Ontario, and the main street is nice brick and stone buildings, 3 stories high with storefronts down the bottom and everything. So and they're quite sized. So when you put that into modeling perspective, everybody's, oh, that's too big. But, no, we were always used to, selective compression. But anyway, I do use mock-ups. They are a very handy tool. In fact, I may send in some more pictures of a building I'm doing right now. And it started from a mock-up. And it was all about sight lines. I knew what it had to do. It was an engine house for my ON30, a little tram line. But I did not want it to interfere with sight lines on the railroad. So I got it far enough and I said, that's it. Then I just took my dividers or measuring tools and took the measurements off of that, took it over to my workbench. And I worked off of, I get this, we have staples and they have these sheets of paper and you can tear them off inch by sheet and it's 1/4 inch grid. It's great for O scalers. And you tape that down and I just build a jig on top of that and I start doing my walls. So I may send in some pictures of that. For that. Again, that's another building that's not finished, but I can see it in my head. And that's once I see that, then I sort of lose interest. I'm on to something else. I got too many things on the go. And it's like whenever in the house, whenever I do a project, write down, but there's a lot of rooms. I had to go back, 3 years later and put the 1/4 round down. I just got to the point and I just never got back. Yeah, I'll get that next weekend. Never did.
Like the plumber's wife never gets us.
That's right. Shoemakers' kids are going shoeless to school. Yes.
All right. I think
Larry.
right about now is a good time to kill off YouTube.
Yeah.
So we'll stop with YouTube.
Well,
and
thanks
live
everybody.
stream.
Thanks everybody for staying and really appreciate it. And I think we had a good show.
Yes.
Thanks, Jim.
Everyone on YouTube, like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And if you want to be actually on the Zoom meeting, go to newtracks.com and sign up, and you can
New tracks modeling, new
now
tracks
New Tracks,
modeling.
yes, New Tracks modeling. What Jim said, he's the one in charge.
Newtracksmodeling.com.
And join in on the fun.
Drag
Alright.
the ball, kick the ball, drag in.
Yes.